I went into this fully prepared to be a contrarian. I wanted to say it was overrated. I wanted to dislike it just to feel special, but I couldn't. This is very good indeed. Hi, I'm Cherlyn, and today I'll be ranking every book I've read in 2023. I didn't read a lot, I only read 15 books, so this will be a short, nice video to watch. So let's get started. 15. So, I didn't read any book that I despised this year. My lowest ranking was 2 stars, and that lowest ranking goes to The Midnight Library. I know a lot of people love this book, but I have my reasons. Mainly, this book is the least subtle piece of media I've ever consumed. I've watched children cartoons that are more subtle and have more subtext than this. This book is about a woman called Nora Seed. She's in her 30s and she's very depressed, and she tries to not be alive anymore. And after her attempt, she goes to this place called the Midnight Library. That's kind of after death kind of thing, between life and death. And there she has access to other versions of her life. Lives where she made different decisions and all of that. And the premise is really good. I like it. That's why I bought the book in the first place. But the thing is, the message of this book is extremely heavy-handed. And not only it's heavy-handed, it's literally spelled out for you. In the end of the book, Nora makes a social media post explaining what she has learned in this journey of hers. Literally, you didn't have to pay attention to the story to know the message, just read this. And as much as I don't like this book because of that, it wasn't unpleasant to read. It's well written, it's entertaining enough. Like, I don't hate it. And I understand why people love it. This has won a lot of prizes, and I kind of understand where this comes from. Depending on where you are in life, this is a message that will resonate with you, and that's reason enough for you to love a book. But yeah, it wasn't for me, and I think if I read this while I was depressed, I would have been mad. Anyway, 2 stars. Didn't hate it, didn't like it. It's just a book that I think is... I think it would be better if it was YA. But if you're an adult, you'll probably find this heavy-handed too. Next, 14th. The Flatshare. This is a romance book that has kind of a fanfic premise, and I like fanfiction, so I was fully expecting to like this. It's about a woman that's looking for a place to live, and it needs to be cheap, and she finds this guy that spends the whole night out because he's a nurse and he works at the night. So he proposes this system where she will have the apartment during the night and he will have during the day. So they'll never really meet, but they share everything, including the bed. So this is the only one bed trope, but different because they are not in the bed at the same time. So they start leaving post-it notes for each other to communicate. They never seen each other, and it's cute, I'll be honest with you. But the thing is, I profoundly didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't dislike them. I didn't care about what happened to them. Some of the conflict felt cartoony, and the characters meet very late in the story. 70% into the story they'll meet for the first time. So what is all this, Again, I didn't hate it. I don't think it's a bad book. Oh, one thing I want to mention, almost forgot. It alternates between both of their point of views, and they have different writing styles. So while Tiffy, the woman, has a very normal prose, very normal way of telling the story, Leon, the guy, has a very weird way. I mean, it's in Portuguese, you won't be able to read it, so but bear with me. The dialogue shows the name of the character and then the dialogue. It doesn't have dialogue tags. It's just the name of the character and what they said. I don't know why the author decided to do this, but it's odd. You get used to it. It's a pretty long book, but it made it worse in my opinion. But yeah, didn't hate it. If you like romance, you'll probably enjoy this. Just wasn't for me. In 13th, we have Beach Read. And I know a lot of people love this book, so please don't kill me. Anyway, this book is about a woman. I forgot her name. January. And the guy's called Augustus. Alright. So January has to move to her father's house after he died. He had this secret beach house that nobody knew about that he shared with his mistress. So after her father died, she found out that he was cheating on her mother, and this was very emotionally draining for her. She was already dealing with her grief, and now she had to deal with that fact, and she's struggling mentally and financially, and that's why she had to move there. She didn't want to because it's living proof of everything that happened, but she has to do what she has to do. And She's a writer. While she's there, she has to finish a book or else bad things because she needs the money. Anyway, next door to her, there is Augustus, who was kind of her rival during college. And yeah, the story is about them meeting and them having kind of this rivalry still because he's also an author and they're kind of trying to switch genres. Like he'll try to write a romance, that's what January writes, and she'll try to write literary fiction, that's what he writes. Anyway, then the story, it's a romance, is them getting together after that. And yeah, it's well written. I didn't hate it, didn't dislike it even. I just didn't really care about anyone here. But if you like romance, you probably like this. Next, I think a lot of people will be mad at me because of this, but 12, That's How You Lose the Time War. This is a great book. It's well written. It has beautiful prose. It has a very interesting premise, but I had a very bad time reading it. It's a sci-fi book. It's about these two time agents that have to go back and forth in time to try to win the war. The whole time you have no idea what's going on. They don't explain it to you because the story is not about that. You just need to know that it's a futuristic thing and they are doing things to win the time war. So they are in opposite sides and they're kind of like enemies, main rivals, like they're each other's main target. And they start leaving each other letters. And with that, they start developing a relationship. I'm not going to spoil more than that. People say it's good to go into this book blind, so I'll shut up. But my main problem with this book is how it was structured. Because how does it work? It will show you a short scene about them fighting in the time war, whatever that means. At the time, it's always different things. And it's a small scene, like between 2 and 10 pages, I think. And it ends with them fighting a letter and reading the letter. And then it switches point of views. And then they find the letter. And then it switches and find the letter. And it happens over and over and over and over again. The whole book is this. Small scene, letter, small scene, letter. And I was not enjoying. I thought it was getting really repetitive. And I wasn't eager to know what was going to happen next because I had no idea what was happening. Like, the relationship between the main characters is very cute. I liked it, but everything else that happened felt kind of like filler. Like, the prose is pretty, but why am I reading this? None of this means anything to me. This is my first sci-fi book, so maybe I just don't like sci-fi. That's a possibility, but yeah. Again, I wasn't a fan, but I acknowledge that it's a very good book, well written, with good characters. Anyway, next one. 11th, Tender is the Flesh. I made a whole video about this book, so if you're interested, you can go watch it. I won't go too much in depth about it. But basically, it's about a world where people can't eat animals anymore. Animals are deadly to people. We can't go near them. You can't eat their meat. And what did people do to solve that? Have them gone vegan? No, they started eating human meat. Very healthy. So like the whole society started molding within that. Like you can just kill someone and eat them. They start creating humans as cattle and you can only eat the cattle. Anyway, the book follows Marcus. He works in the meat industry and he receives a head, a human cattle, as a gift for him, and he can't bring himself to kill her. And the story goes from there, what he does to this human cattle. It's unpleasant. It's a very disgusting book. That's the goal. It's a very good book if you want to be grossed out. Anyway, go watch my video about that after this one. Next, Anxious People. How do I even begin to explain what this book is about? It's about a robber that goes into an apartment building that's having visitations for people to buy it. So this robber goes in and they keep everyone hostage, basically. And the story follows both the police trying to solve the situation and the people in the apartment. It's a very character-driven story. You get to know all these characters. It's a very, very fun read. I recommend it. One thing that made it worse for me is because I read it in Portuguese. I read all of this in Portuguese, but the problem is there is a plot twist in here that was kind of spoiled because of the language. I can't explain it without spoiling it, but like it didn't work as well in Portuguese. I can see it working better in English. So yeah, read it in English. This book is a mess and I love it. There is a miniseries on Netflix that adapts this book and I like it. I like the series and I like the book. I recommend both. Next, Red, White, and Royal Blue. A romance book I liked. So I don't know if my problem is the romance genre or just the two books I picked up, but this one I enjoyed. It's about the son of the president of the United States and the Prince of England, them being rivals at first and them falling in love. It's very cute. It's silly, but it's very cute. And I see a lot of people complaining about it because it's too idealistic, and it is too idealistic, but I think the world has place for stories like this. A lot of queer media is based on suffering and pain, so I think it's also good that we have some light things to look on the bright side. I think both have place. And also things that are in the middle. That's quite rare to see too. But anyway, it's unrealistic, it's over idealistic, but I like it. It's cute. I had a very good time reading it. If you like romance or not, read this. There's this whole political arc that's not that fun, but it didn't ruin the book for me, so still enjoyed it. Next, The Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis. How do you say that? You probably know what this book is about. It's about a man called Gregor Samsa, and he one day wakes up and he's a giant bug, beetle, cockroach. I think it's a beetle. And the story shows how this affects him, his family, and everyone around him. It's a metaphor for depression. Everybody knows this at this point. But yeah, if you want to start reading classics, this one is very short. You can start by it. And the language is also very easy. Very non-intimidating. Read this. Some people say this book is boring. They say that nothing happens in it. And yes, nothing happens, but that's kind of the point. Gregor is a giant bug. He can't do anything. It follows his family having to deal with it. And it's very tragic. Poor Gregor. Love him. He deserves better. I think it's too short to be boring, honestly. So yeah, good book. Next, The Stranger. This is also a classic that's easy to start with. This was my first one actually, and it's also short and has very easy language. So yeah, it follows the story of Arthur Merceau, that's his name, and he's a very chill guy. Too chill. He doesn't really care about anything, and the story follows him as he doesn't care about anything. It's a bit hard to explain this book. It has a lot of absurdist ideas. Is that how you say it? That's basically the idea that nothing matters, life doesn't really have a meaning, so do whatever you want and enjoy it. Putting it very simply, but yeah, I think all of Camus' books are like this. And Arthur, the main character, brings it to an extreme. He just does some terrible things just because he doesn't care. And I won't say too much because I think everything I say will spoil it. So like, go read this. This is very good. The ending is amazing. Next. Sixth, Tudo é Rio. It's a Brazilian book. I don't think there's a translation. I tried to find it, but I'll talk about it anyway. If one day you can find it, go read it. It's very good. It's about a lot of people, but I think the main character will be Lucy. She is a sex worker, really likes doing her job, and she falls in love with the only guy that's not interested in her services, basically. And then the book follows the story of her, the guy she's in love with, his wife, the mother of the wife. It follows the story of everyone, and I love it. It's very good. The prose, beautiful. And one thing that's funny about the writing style is that it kind of doesn't have dialogue. Like the characters do say things once in a while, but it's like not within quoting marks. It's just floating in the prose. Reading this feels like someone is telling you the story, like you sat with your grandma and she started narrating this whole story. Like you're not there in the scene, you're just listening about it. I don't know if it made sense, but that's very much how it feels. And it's different from everything I read this year. And I loved it. I finished reading this yesterday, but I started it in 2023. So it counts as 2023. Won't accept criticism on it. But yeah, anyway, amazing. Next. Fifth, Picture of Dorian Gray. This book. It's genius. I don't need to tell you that. You've probably heard this over and over again. Go read this book. It's amazing. It follows the story of Dorian Gray, a very beautiful man. The book makes it very clear that he's beautiful. That's the most important aspect of the book. And he gets a portrait painted of him by his friend Basil. And he starts getting jealous of the portrait because he will age and get ugly, but the portrait will stay young and beautiful forever. So what does he do? He kind of pleads that he wanted to change places with the portrait, like the portrait would age and he would be young forever, and that's what happens. Dorian stops aging. And with that, and the influence of his friend Lord Henry, who doesn't shut up a second in this book, Dorian starts becoming a terrible person, and you follow his downfall while he's still beautiful. Anyway, it took me very long to finish this book because between personal problems and the language that's not too easy to read, it took me long. And there's a chapter in here that I skipped. I won't lie to you. It's chapter 11, I think. I don't know which one it is. Because there's a time skip. And then when there's this time skip, there's like 30 pages describing what Dorian did during this time skip. But it's not scenes, it's not like fun things. It's just describing in a lot of detail the hobbies that Dorian went through. Anyway, read it, you understand. And one thing I found out like yesterday is that this is the censored version. I read the censored version and it's actually bigger. When he had to censor it, Oscar Wilde added some chapters and some subplots. And you might be asking, why was this censored? Because it's an extremely gay book. I don't know how this was published in 1890. So even the censored version is very gay. So I have no idea how the uncensored one was. But yeah, it's amazing because I didn't expect this going into a 19th century book. But yeah, everyone in this book is in love with Dorian, including the guys. And everyone is always describing how beautiful he is. It's amazing. I found it very, very entertaining. Sometimes it reads like a soap opera. It's very dramatic. Go read this. I can't do this book justice. Just read it. Next. So now the books I start ranking are going to be all 5 stars, and I was not sure in which order I put them. So all of this could be first place. Anyway, fourth, The Dutch House. This is the kind of book where nothing happens, and I'm totally here for it. It follows the story of 2 siblings, Danny and Maeve, and they kind of have their house stolen by their stepmom, and the story follows them coming to terms with it and living their lives. This is just their life story. It doesn't really have a plot, and I loved it. Loved every second of this book. If you don't like literary fiction, maybe you'll find this boring, but I didn't. I got so attached to every character in this book. It has a very special place in my heart. Third, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. What can I say about this book that hasn't been said already? It's amazing. It's 100% worth the hype. I went into this fully prepared to be a contrarian. I wanted to say it was overrated. I wanted to dislike it just to feel special, but I couldn't. This is very good indeed. It follows the story of Monique, a journalist that's invited by Evelyn Hugo to write her memoir. So the story is between Monique living her life and she going to Evelyn and then Evelyn telling her story. So it's dual timeline, but you spend most of your time with Evelyn. She's the star. Evelyn is a very famous actress from the golden era of cinema. She's like very, very famous. So the story tells how she got there and about her life overall, like about her 7 husbands, about the love of her life. And I won't spoil this for you. If you can, go into this blind. It has some plot twists. I can't describe in words how much I love this book. I cried so much by the end. The characters are so well written. Like, I fully believe all these characters are real people and this is a non-fiction book. Like, it's great. I don't know what else to say. The story of Monique, I didn't really care about, but it's not long. So I think nobody really cares about Monique, but she's an important part of this book. If you read it, you'll understand it. Anyway, read it, please. Next. Second, My Dark Vanessa. This book is extremely heavy. It's not for the faint of heart. It's about a 15-year-old girl that starts going out with her 40-year-old teacher, and it shows like very realistically the process of him grooming her and how it goes like well into her adulthood and how much trauma it causes and how much she's struggling to deal with it. Like decades later, she's still struggling with it. And it's heartbreaking. Very disgusting book. And I love it. It's a masterpiece, truly. I think most women will relate to this in one way or another. Even if you didn't go through something similar, I think, unfortunately, we all know what it's like to be sexualized as a teen. I think it's a universal experience. Yeah, this is triggering even if you didn't go through anything like this. So yeah, be careful. Vanessa is a very flawed character. It's very frustrating to read her journey because she doesn't want to accept everything that happened and she tries to pretend it was a good thing. And you get mad at her like, girl, you were 15, like, come on. But that's the point. Like, a big part of grooming and the abuse is to make her believe that it wasn't that bad. It wasn't abuse. She enjoyed it. Quoting marks on enjoyed it. So it wasn't abused. It's very messy. It's a very messy story and it's frustrating, but you can't help but empathize. Like, it's not her fault. None of what happened was her fault. And she keeps blaming herself. Anyway, it's dual timeline, so it follows her in the present day and her past, so it kind of progresses through her whole story, and it's beautifully written. It's amazing. I'm running out of words to describe these books. I read a lot of good books this year, so yeah, if you think you can handle this kind of story, read it. If not, don't. It is heavy. Next. And in first place, we have Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. This is the book I consider to be my all-time favorite. The thing is, this was the first 5-star book I read this year, so I would have to reread it to see if it's actually better than these ones because I'm conflicted. I love all of them. But yeah, I really enjoyed this read. It's about Sam and Sadie, two childhood friends that spend a lot of time apart. They had this big fight, and after they are adults, they meet again and they start making video games together. Again, it's literary fiction. It doesn't really have a plot, so that's not for everybody. But it follows their life throughout decades of them developing games together and living their lives. And I love everything about this book. The characters are flawed and borderline unlikable, honestly, but I love them anyway. It's a love and hate relationship I have with them. And this really resonated with me because I'm making a game, so like, I felt it's hard. But I think even if you're not making a game, if you're a creative of any kind, I think you'll resonate with this because it shows the creative process and all the struggles that come with this and all the beauty that comes with it. And I love it. It really touched me. There is one chapter towards the end. If you read it, you already know what I'm talking about. The best chapter I've ever read in anything. I've never cried this much reading a book. It's just so beautifully written, so heartbreaking, and I do think this whole book is worth it just for this chapter alone, although it's worth it for everything else too. So, but anyway, it's not for everyone, but it is certainly for me. I've heard some people say that the dialogue is bad. I've heard them say it's not natural, it's kind of robotic. And to be honest, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's true because I read it in Portuguese. I feel like every book translated to Portuguese, the dialogue will feel natural. We're used to it. So I don't know. I plan on reading this in English to know if it's true. But yeah, this is my favorite book. I can't praise it enough. Please read it if you like this kind of stuff. If you are a plot-driven person, you like plots, then probably not for you. But if you like characters and if you like despicable characters, read this. And with that, we finish this list. These are all the books I read in 2023 ranked. If you disagree with me, tell me in the comments. If you agree with me, tell me in the comments. Let's have a discussion. I read a lot of good books, some that I didn't love, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!